We wrote down the 5 biggest problems in South Africa, and number 1 was obviously energy, but it's too expensive for us to make a solution around it. Second one was food security. And then we looked at, okay, what's the issues around food security and what's the best solution? And that's how we got to Arable.
Hein, why do you do what you do?
When we started it, I wanted to make an impact, but I also wanted to make an impact and make money. I'm not going to bullshit you by telling you like, oh, I don't want to make money, like the whole, it's both. I want to be able to look after my family one day and like do it, but at the same time make a difference in society. How we got to Arable was we didn't say, cool, we want to do vertical farming, or what does it tackle? We wrote down the 5 biggest problems in South Africa, and number 1 was obviously energy, but it's too expensive for us to make a solution around it. Second one was food security. And then we looked at, okay, what's the issues around food security and what's the best solution? And that's how we got to Arable. Vertical farming we identified as tackles the most problems in food security and climate impact. Yeah.
Okay, before we get into Arable, I just want to know impact. What's the metrics that you would define making an impact to be?
I would say if you're making someone else's life better on a social aspect, but also it's more than that, like an internal, on a physical level. So a big part of what we always say is food security is co-tied with climate change or climate impact. So if I make an impact on someone's life, it means, okay, they get maybe food, or I improve their daily living condition and their social well-being. But physically, they're also healthier, happier, and that has all these other repercussions that benefit their life. That's impact. Impact isn't like just doing one thing. If you do impact right, it's a snowball effect, and that's what you want to get. Because otherwise, you're not making the biggest impact that you can.
And where did this come from? Like, what is your kind of mindset and seeds planted for you to want to make this impact?
To want to make an impact, I think it was inbred into me or growing up. I had a single mom, and she was very good in teaching me that it's not just all about you. And when you get given a talent or given a skill or platform or means, don't just do it for yourself. Do it for someone else. Because in the end of the day, everyone likes to feel alone, but you're not alone. Everyone at some point in their lives has that feeling of feeling alone. And then that stems over into thinking that, okay, I'm alone, so I must just look after myself. I must just, do it for myself. And then I think that's when you kind of lose a little bit of a direction. It's maybe a bit vain in saying that, like, seeing where you improve someone's life is really rewarding. You shouldn't do it just because you want to feel that reward, but it's an added benefit. If you can make someone else's life better with what you have, I've been taught that is, and I also believe it, that, that's the right thing to do. Yeah.
I think, also what I'm understanding from you is having that kind of mentor support from your mom and learning from her that essentially what formed your kind of belief system, and are you executing on that from a place of service and wanting to do good. And I think that some entrepreneurs may not have that North Star. So what's your advice to those entrepreneurs to find that North Star?
I think, I said this to someone the other day. I was like, I've been fortunate to grow up not wealthy and not have everything. And then they'll look at me and they're like, what do you mean? I was like, it's the same, that false fallacy of, when someone says they're a trust fund baby, that not all of them are like that, but then, statistically, most of them don't really do much because they know they've got the safety net. So I think someone who doesn't have that North Star of someone like teaching them these values, or through their living conditions or their bringing up, if they don't have that like built in, as an entrepreneur, I think plug yourself into that situation at some point, or meet someone or speak to them. We always get taught through engineering also, you kind of have to go speak to the community, but no one really wants to go speak to the community when you're learning all these technical things. But it's very valuable when you speak to them and you actually realize, it's not just about the numbers.
Of course.
Yeah.
And getting into Arable, So you walked me through basically where the idea came from. So how did you actually take that idea and start the business?
So when we identified the problem and we knew vertical farming was the way to go about it, we said, okay, now how do we build this? Do we buy the technology? What does it entail? We are a very technical founding team, so we approached it like a scientific study. Kind of wrote down what's available, where's the problems, everything. Then we came down to this list. Originally, it was just me and my brother that I brought him in, and then Reese, and then Liam. We built the team around skills that I didn't have. So I wrote down what I had, and then what the skills we needed further, and then from there we got to Arable, and we said, okay, now we approach and we need to build this company more than just a science project. So then we had the solution, we knew how to get to a product, but now we had to monetize it. And we had to make sure that it's sustainable and it lasts. I think, the biggest realization we knew we were stepping into a very conservative industry. So we had to also be smart about how do we sustain this off of our own money if we don't get funding, and get to a point where we can get debt financing or something like that.
And actually, before coming up with that solution or solution then monetization, what sort of testing that you had to do or did you do to ensure that this, in fact, vertical farming was the answer?
So we did a paper study before, feasibility. So we looked at all the vertical farms internationally, what they do, what their impacts are, where they maybe failed. We looked at, especially at the ones that went bankrupt, and kind of said, why did they go bankrupt? So once we knew what the impact was and what the business side of it was, then we said, okay, now we think this will work if we make these changes to the model and to the technology. Then to actually prove that we could do it, and we didn't want to buy the technology in, we pulled our money together, rented a 6-meter container. I think we had enough money for 4 months of rent. Inside we had old racks that we used. We had these styrofoam boards that were sagging, that the LED lights were literally stuck onto. We used duct tape to make these bridges to have the gutters lie on. Our germination tray was on top of an old heated blanket. Not the safest thing at all, from a certification or legal perspective, probably, if it went wrong. But then we tested it and we saw, okay, cool, we can grow this. We can grow produce. We've now gotten some data points, and we said, okay, we need to design technology around this. That's because then we proved it. So we got to the end of the 4 months, pitched an investor for 5 million rand. He was like, no, guys, I'll give you 60,000 rand. We're like, gee, okay, we'll take it because we don't have money left. And he gave us 6 months, and he said, show me what you can do. After 4 months, we had 3 clients. We had a fully running farm, and he was very impressed. And then he's now our biggest investor. So then he said, okay, you guys have proven the case. Now let's design a proper farm. Let's build it. You own it, and you run it. And that's the newest farm now.
Could you maybe go into the products that you guys offer?
Yeah.
And then go into the clients that you targeted.
So the main idea of the company, the 70-30 rule, we want to sell this technology to other people because the main core is food security. And we realized it's that saying of teach someone to fish and you feed them for a lifetime. So we want to do the same with our technology. Is we don't just want to do it ourselves. If I can equip someone else with this vertical farm container, we call it a satellite, and they can run a sustainable business, feed their community, but also make money in the same process and have a sustainable job, then I'm happy, then job done. But we knew in getting there, we first need to prove, because South Africa's market, no one's going to buy it unless someone else has done it. It's that same thing, we go to investors, it's okay, who else has invested? They always want to know. So we said, okay, let's do it ourselves. Let's prove that it's able. So then we built the technology, and then we focused first on produce sales. So then the core originally was just getting this good quality produce out into the market, educating people that it's same price. We ask market prices. It's not more expensive, but it lasts a week longer. It's more nutritional. It's more sustainable. A big thing we realized, especially anyone who buys produce in restaurants, they are so scared of changing suppliers, because if we miss one day, their whole menu is buggered. Then they lose all their clients. So they're so willing to stick with bad quality produce and we show them. So our first client, while we were getting this thing up and running, I decided, well, I was forced unemployed for 7 months I can't go too much into detail about it, but I was allowed to take a part-time job to generate some money while we were like figuring out where this is going. So I worked at a wine bar as a waiter, and I spoke to the chef like every night, like trying to get some feedback. And then one day he was like, "Bring me what you have, and we can see. But I'm happy with what I've got." And I knew what he was getting was really bad quality. I mean, I saw it going out every day. So I brought him a tray, gave it to him, and he tasted it. And he's like, "What did you guys put in here? Like, did you GMO change it?" Like, and he's like nothing. It's 100% organic. This is just the right way of growing it. He took his old produce, threw it in the bin. He's like, "I want this every week," and that helped. So, because luckily I had that like relationship I've started building with him, so it was easier for them to take a chance on us. Because I was still working there, so he's like, if I miss an order, he can like shout at me right there. And they were a good profile, and then we built that reputation. Then from there, he referred us to someone. He said, "Listen, good quality," stepped in, and then from there just started building.
And now you actually change your model from essentially a B to N customer to B2B, purely selling your technology. Mm-hmm. So what is that transition like, and what were the challenges with doing that?
We're still in that transition. We knew it was going to be tough because of the cost of this technology. Our market is not the richest market, so for people to take that leap, it's tough. So we will never get rid of growing produce, because that helps us design better technology, and it helps us to educate whoever buys our technology, because we then learn new methods of growing, for instance, lettuce, better methods. We'll then push it through our SaaS system, our farm management system, to our clients to tell them, "Listen, by changing your lighting spectrum to this, you can grow your produce faster and at better quality." Because what we've seen a lot of international companies do, they just design the technology because they've got these smart people designing it, and they push it out to clients. But they've now learned how to do it, and then they stop. It's continuous improvement. Technology is very new. The whole research is new. So you want to keep learning.
Because that's how you get disrupted.
Yeah. So a big IP advantage we have is our horticulture experience. Everything we've designed, we first looked at how the plants reacted. There's so many studies we looked at from a lighting spectrum alone. They'd say, "This is the light spectrum to use." So we buy the lights, we put it on the light. The plants don't love it. They don't like it. And we're like, "What's going on?" So then we do our own studies and our own tests. It takes a little bit longer. We had like 4 different light spectrums, identified which spectrum is the best, and now that's our newest grow lights, and plants love it.
And fundraising. So you guys recently raised some, was it seed capital?
Angel. So our angel round we closed.
Okay.
We've opened our pre-seed round now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what tips could you give us in that process? What should entrepreneurs be looking out for? And in that process, what made you guys different, apart from, of course, having this good technology, having this good product? What else did the angel investor actually say, "Cool"?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, listen, fundraising is tough. It's really tough, especially if you do something that local investors can't compare it to. I think the thing that makes it difficult for us is local investors want to say, "Okay, who else is doing it, and how are you better?" I'm like, "Okay, I'm going to compare it to an international company because no one else is doing what we're doing here." And they're like, "But you can't do that." I was like, "Okay, well, then I'm stuck." Finding investors, I'm very picky and I'm very paranoid about who I get into bed with, because we've got this long-term vision of where we want to go. So I would say choose someone that you can see yourself walking a journey with, and that buys into more than just the numbers of the business. In the end of the day, I feel like when investors invest this early, they invest 30% into the business, and the other 70% is into you and your founding team. And you don't want someone who's going to try and boss you around and tell you like, "No, rather do it this way." You obviously take guidance, but yeah, be smart about it. We had a investor that came to us after we had our first few angel investors, and he offered us 50 million rand for the company, but he wanted 51%. And his area of expertise was the coal industry. I was like, "You don't really understand the industry we're stepping into, all this technology." So I'd only do that for someone, if someone who has started and exited from a vertical farming company had to come to me with that offer, then maybe I'd consider it, because then I know, they understand where this has to go. But from that perspective, I was like, no. And they was it was very like, "This is the offer, take it or don't, you'll be stupid if you don't." And then I was like, no, then I'm not happy.
What also makes your journey unique is that you guys were able to bootstrap.
Yeah.
And that also puts you in a position where you're not completely desperate. Yes, you do need funding, but you're not completely desperate. So you're not just going to take the first 15 million from a coal guy or coal investor that comes your way. So I guess the lesson there is bootstrap for as long as you can. Of course, your growth is going to be slow, but you're going to also be learning a lot. And, that's, I'm sure you've learned a lot of lessons bootstrapping. And
build a lean company. It's not easy then. Everyone wants a lot of money because it'll make your life easier. It probably won't. We said the other day, what would we have done with 50 million rand? I would have bought stupid equipment that I didn't need. I would have hired people too soon. And I mean, we've heard scary stories of companies that have like 3,000 employees and all of a sudden they fail because they just had all this money. And a big thing that's happening, and we get this question now a lot of international vertical farming companies are filing for bankruptcy because VC companies like 3 years ago were just pushing money into this space because it's new, it's cool, like they see the value. If you give that amount of money to someone and they have to fill a space, they're just going to spend it on money on stuff that they shouldn't. So I would say raise what you think is like just above your bare minimum that you need. Obviously calculate that very carefully. And then build a lean company because it'll teach you how to design better, how to operate a better company, and how to get the right people in. Otherwise, you're going to neglect those small things that in the end of the day is going to hit later on when it matters.
That's a good lesson. Most entrepreneurs that I came across just want the money without knowing exactly where each penny is going to go. And investors want to know where each penny is going to go. So, of course, there's the expectation to spend the money when you do have it. And, of course, you do dumb shit like buy building.
It's scary. My concept of money have changed so much. I used to say all we need is 100,000 rand. Now I'm like, gee, all we need is 1 million rand. But then you get that 100,000 rand in the bank and you realize it's not yours. You've taken money from someone else. If you bugger this up, they're going to come for you. And it's also you messing with someone else's possible life. A lot of our angel investors aren't these big, wealthy people, but they believed in what we did. And they gave us money that is, they will feel it in the bank. So there's a big ownership to it. You need to understand you've got a responsibility with that money. So if you take a big portion of money from someone and you mess it up, I would not like to be in that person's shoes.
And also that's a good lesson. Put yourself in the investor's shoes. You've got 20 million in the bank and someone's asking you for 10% of your wealth. Would you give that to that person?
That's you have to think about it.
Next steps. What is the next steps for Arable in the coming months, years? Where do you see the company going and growing?
Focusing a lot on building our revenue to a point where it stretches our runway, and we get to a break-even point almost. We want to prove the commercial case, which we've already done, but now we want to also prove it at a larger scale. And while we're focusing more on debt financing and grants at the moment, because we are asset heavy and equity is expensive, we've opened a pre-seed round, but we're not shouting it from the treetops. If an investor comes to us and closes the whole round, we'll take it if it's aligns with our terms. But otherwise, we're not going to go begging and groveling for it. We've got this runway planned now. We're focusing on getting the technology out there, really equipping and figuring out, because especially with the way we've designed the technology, we've got so many target markets we can actually hit, and we want to focus on the one that is most needed, that still aligns with our vision. And the only way we're going to be able to do that is now to put these feelers out in the market and see who bites and then run with it. We've got a big focus at the moment on educational, private education, because we realize by the time we are big, we're going to need skilled labor, and we're also going to need people that understand this. So we've placed our current farmers on a primary school, one primary school. They're the oldest eco school in South Africa. And the idea there is we teach the kids about urban farming and the future, because we believe this is how most of the food in future is going to have to be grown. So you want to get them excited now. An engineer came and spoke to me when I was in grade 9, and immediately that's what I wanted to do. So that's our same hope. So we're building a curriculum for schools that they can then plug in primary school, high school, and hopefully in universities also. And then you can also buy the farm and then have it like you have a science curriculum and a science lab. Now you have this curriculum for urban farming, because it's more than just hydroponics or horticulture. There's robotics, there's math, there's accounting in there. I mean, gee, there's marketing in there. So there's so many subjects that can plug into it. So that's our focus at the moment, is to push that. And then second to that is equipping entrepreneurs who wants to step into the space. So someone who understands the food security, who wants to feed their community, but wants to buy this and also build a sustainable business. But we also know it's expensive. So before we get to that, that's why it's second on the list. We want to figure out, how do we better finance our solutions? So we're looking at partnerships. We're looking at taking our case study with our data to a bank and then presenting it to them and saying, like, listen, this is why you should open a loan specifically for this technology, because these are the numbers, it works. Within 2 years, you can make your return on investment. There's carbon credits you can get from it. So we need to do that and make it more financeable.
The question that I actually forgot to ask was, what's the benefits of vertical farming and also the challenges?
Benefits, there's a lot. So first of all, from a climate aspect, we use 90% less water to make the same amount of kgs of produce as a conventional farm. We use less land. We use no pesticides. South Africa still uses one of the top 5 most toxic pesticides in the world, and everyone's just okay with eating that. I mean, very few people I know wash their food before they eat it. But even further than that, on the farms, 99% of pesticides sprayed wash off into our ground. That 1% targets the pest. So it's what we're doing, and the long-term effects are scary. So that's on a climate impact. On a nutritional, because a big part of food security is nutritional security. There's no point in increasing our production if what's getting to the person, to the end consumer, isn't nutritional. You're just growing cardboard then. So big advantage by us being closer to market. The farm-to-table life is shorter, so we can guarantee actually more nutritional produce than anyone else, because it gets to you faster. Better growing conditions, so our produce grows 30% faster, organically 30% faster. And the taste, your lettuce, I can't eat store lettuce anymore. It tastes bitter to me now, because I now know what real lettuce should taste like. Tomatoes, strawberries, like just what produce should taste like. From a financial benefit, I think long term, because risk. Look at the potato industry. Potatoes are up 92% this year alone.
Wow.
Everyone's talking about eggs being up more. Potatoes have gone up more than eggs. And it's because there was a big drought period, and potato farmers really struggled to then get potatoes out. Or if there's a lot of rain, then the floods happen and the potato qualities aren't good. So it's very cyclical. So 1 year everything will be good, and then the next year it's a problem. With our technology, you don't have to worry about climate impact from adverse weather conditions, because it's in-house. So yeah, you pay a little bit more initially, but if you think about it, if you're paying for risk alleviation or mitigation, so you're getting rid of that. So financially, I think it's a big part is you taking the unknowns out of the equation and being able to grow produce year-round. I mean, I can tell you stories of the food we import out of season and how much of that we actually do. Now think about it like something small like basil. Basil can't grow in winter outside, so we import it. Now with our technology, if you put this basil container behind a Checkers, for instance, farm to table is like 20 minutes, or farm to store is 20 minutes, and then to table is the rest of the day. But then year round, basil right from there. So carbon emissions is less. A big thing that we do is carbon avoidance. So instead of having a truck that trucks this then all the way and from a boat and getting it to the store, now it's right there. So companies, big retailers, can in theory then claim those carbon credits, because they're now avoiding that carbon.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Hein. Thanks for your time. Awesome. This was really valuable and insightful.
And thanks for having me.
No problem. Cool. Thank you.